All right. Okay. Well, good morning or good afternoon. Thank you to the InnoFact Show team behind this event for giving me the chance to hold this very short masterclass to talk energy, carbon, and the future of hotels. My name is Willy Legrand. I'm a professor at the IU International University of Applied Sciences in Germany. I do research in the field of sustainability, environmental management, and hospitality real estate for the past 20 years. I've just completed actually the 4th edition of a leading textbook on the topic called Sustainability in the Hospitality Industry, Principles of Sustainable Operation. The 3rd edition is still out. That's the one you see on your left, bottom left here. The 4th edition that I've just completed, 700 pages on sustainability with 19 chapters and 17 case studies, industry case studies on all topics, that will be out in early 2022. Today, however, it's all about energy solutions, and making informed decisions. I have 30 minutes filled with material, but I'm interested in your questions, of course, which you can ask in the chat. And if I'm allowed, I will answer throughout or after. And alternatively, I've also got my email and LinkedIn contacts here, details listed. So we're going to take 30 minutes, and I split this in 2 parts, 5 chapters. The first 15 minutes are dedicated to the rationale or the terminology for all of us to be sort of on the same starting points with a common understanding of the job to be done and the target to achieve ahead. And then the second 15 minutes is all about hotel energy efficiency, energy solutions, informed decision-making by looking at different tools. So I guarantee you that you'll come out with this with perhaps a enhanced knowledge, equipped with new ideas for sure, and the confidence in making decisions on the topic of energy. Or perhaps I've just triggered your curiosity, which is itself a decent outcome and a way forward. And the question that basically leads this talk is, how do we make the right decisions to future-proof our businesses and as consumer confidence returns, knowing the challenges ahead? So let's take stock here. Look at the big picture, the helicopter view, if you will, this unprecedented situation, the imperative really to deal with climate emergency, biodiversity collapse, while also ensuring economic recovery. And we're still amidst a humanitarian crisis. Now, one particular concept that quickly became mainstream knowledge during the first onset of this epidemic is flattening the curve. And of course, in the climate change context, we actually talk about bending the emission curves. But in principle, the concepts are similar because, as we know, the curve itself refers to the projected number of people who contract COVID over a period of time. Now, flattening the curve is a public health strategy to slow down the spread of virus. And then we do this via certain mitigation adaptation strategies, such as social distancing, for example. Now, the concept of flattening the curve can be applied to major crises of the Earth system. And for example, the greenhouse gases, in particularly carbon dioxide, is one of the more dangerous curves that humanity has not been able to flatten or bend. That curve is known as the Keeling curve. And failing to bend the curve here is the red curve you see on the graph, with dire consequences. But the same could be said in regard to the biodiversity collapse or ecosystem destructions, with the number of species endangered or extinct here too. There are frameworks available, but with a lot of gaps in practice. The hopes is to strike a Paris-like agreement on biodiversity when countries negotiate the targets on global biodiversity framework later in 2022 in Kunming, China. Now, we all need to treat that climate emergency and biodiversity loss as 2 parts of the same problem. But for today, we'll talk and we'll focus on climate and carbon. We have a global agreement, the Paris Agreement, that offers a framework to bend the curve, as I said before, by setting science-based target to level the global increase of temperature of no more than 2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. Now, the 27 pages long 2015 Paris Agreement can be best summarized in 3 words. It's mitigation, adaptation, and support. And clearly, mitigation and adaptation strategies are 2 complementary approaches for responding to climate emergency. So mitigations are actions that are undertaken to seek that limit the temperature increase to 2 degrees Celsius. So for example, If your hotel would invest in standalone renewable energy production, that would be considered mitigation action as it reduces the emissions. On the other hand, if you have an eco-lodge and you're investing in greater building insulations because you're facing more extreme heat waves and thus requiring less cooling, that would be considered adaptation to the effect of climate change. In this case, it's about building resilience as stipulated in Article 6, paragraph 6. Now, the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, in partnership with Greenview, has produced a report in late 2017 called the Global Hotel Decarbonization Report. And following science-based target, the global hotel industry needs to reduce its carbon emission by 66% until 2030 and 90% by 2050 compared to a 2010 baseline in order to remain with that 2 degrees Celsius target set by the Paris Agreement. De facto, we're calling for a complete decarbonization. And decarbonization, that includes multiple components, but at the core are increase in energy efficiency and production of renewable energy. And decision in an industry, whether it's about investing in brand new hotel building or retrofitting existing properties, should be made aligned with energy efficiency and renewable energy in mind. And we'll have more on that a little later. There are various approaches to sustainability in building designs and forms, and building energy efficiency has been defined in many different ways, looking at issues such as energy sourcing, on-site, off-site renewable energy production, on-grid, off-grid property, direct, indirect, embodied carbon emission, and so on. So while my book discusses those major similarities and differences between those, here, I think we'll just stick to actually a couple concepts rather than going through all of those. So if we look at the National Institute of Building Science, they prepared a document for the US Department of Energy in which it explains in details what a zero energy building actually stands for. And a zero energy building is typically grid connected. It's very energy efficient. It produces renewable energy on site, or within the building footprint boundary, and transfers any surplus of that on-site renewable energy to other users. Now, the energy delivered to the hotel through the grid can come from both renewable and non-renewable resources. In that case, on-site renewable production can be used for all the energy use inside the hotel, such as heating, ventilation, air conditioning, hot water production, lighting, and so on. And then the on-site renewable energy production system supplying the building with energy, obviously that helps to reduce the need for delivered energy. The important overall is that the actual energy delivered is less than or equal to the on-site renewable energy exported. It's worth, however, noting that that definition of net zero or zero energy greatly differs across different institutions. As a contrast, just as a quick one, should you seek a zero energy certification for your building from the International Living Future Institute, then 100% of the building energy needs to, on a net annual basis, must be supplied by on-site renewable energy. And then the combustion of wood chips or biomass on property is not considered to meet on-site energy demand. So no combustion whatsoever. Okay, so it's worth noting that so far we've only discussed the concept of operational energy, that is the energy used in operations. That includes heating, cooling, cooking, lighting, hot water production, and so on. This is where most operators will focus on their industry. But the question is, what about the energy that goes into building the hotel in the first place? And this is where we have also a model, and the UK and the World Green Buildings Council argued that the concept of net zero carbon building should look at the various stages of life of a building. And so when we look at net zero carbon for operation, that looks at the amount of carbon emissions associated with the building operational energy on an annual basis, and that should be zero or negative. This means a building which is highly energy efficient, it's powered by on-site or off-site renewable energy sources, and with any remaining carbon balance to be offset. It also means a net zero carbon in construction. So that's when the amount of the carbon emissions associated with that building construction stages all the way up to completion is 0 or negative, and that'll be achieved through the use of offsets or through the net export of on-site renewable. But then there's one major component left out in all of this, and it's about the maintenance of over the life of a building. In the hospitality industry, that includes the emissions from all our regular refurbishment renovation cycles all the way to the end of the life of a building. And here we're looking at the amount of carbon emission associated with the building's embodied and operational impacts over the life of a building, including all the way to the disposal, and that should be 0 or negative. So maybe as a quick summary for the first 15 minutes, in fact, we're talking about embodied carbon. And embodied carbon, that's the carbon emission associated with new construction processes and the material throughout the entire whole life cycle of a hotel. And so that's the raw material, the transport, the manufacturing of the equipment, the repair, replacement, refurbishment. So embodied carbon in your soft goods, in your hard goods, waste disposal, and so on. So that's the bulk, actually. The estimates are actually difficult to make for our industry, but when we consider the fast refurbishment cycle of 5 to 7 years for many hotels, embodied carbon makes up anywhere between 30 to 70% of a typical hotel or building's total life cycle emissions. And the operational carbon, which is actually what we'll be focusing on today, comes from your space heating, your cooling. That's the largest chunk of energy usage, followed by domestic hot water and lighting. And so what we look here is at operational efficiency. So embodied carbon is critical for sure. It's critical in the path to decarbonization, but really is a topic for another masterclass. Now, sustainable energy solutions are multifaceted, and some involve quick wins, some involve being patient for return to grow. Solutions can be human-driven. This is often where we see the fastest gain, but technology is helping to harness that data and forecast, and understand trends, and let building even make their own decisions. And in a world which needs to think holistically, that is, we don't really want to hope for a solution to one particular challenge to turn into an issue or a problem for something else. And so what we're seeing the return of nature in building, and that's by far perhaps one of the most exciting avenues going forward. So let's keep energy efficiency and renewable energy equation in mind to decarbonization, and let's have a look at 10 energy solutions from basic to advanced that all should be considered. And the first 4 are the basics, really. And I'm going to start with something very simple that really every hotel should be completing. It's Audit, a complete systematic review of each fuel energy consuming system in a restaurant or in an establishment such as a hotel. It starts with the collection and analysis of all the information that may affect your energy consumptions, inspect the conditions and the performance of your systems, your installations, all your management techniques, look at your utility bills, conducting a walkthrough assessment, especially doing a night walk of a property, and to see where the quick wins are. The lights are left in the meeting rooms where it's not necessary. The shaving dishes are still on from last night's buffet, etc. The audit findings are then compared with energy performance published standards. We talk about benchmarking of other establishments that are similar to yours. The audit does not result itself in a reduction of energy consumption, but it provides you with clarity to implement an action plan. So linked to this, of course, is training. Very important, often underestimated, training that increases staff knowledge about energy, water, waste, carbon. And that can be done through gamification as well. The goal here is to build employees' confidence in answering sustainability questions, and then to enable them to apply more responsible behavior. Again, fastest ROI possible in regard to energy saving, having a responsible team, and that means a knowledgeable team. Next, in the very basic one, is monitoring, and that's really the regular checking of your energy consumption level by establishing routine for reading utility meters, checking the accuracy of energy invoices, and of course, much of this can be digitalized by now, but if that's not the case, the first step is simply to do it manually. Monitoring at regular intervals is critical to detect unexpected changes in your consumption. These changes can be the consequence of your faulty equipment, inadequate temperature, lighting control, or any other source of energy inefficiency. Really, the goal you identify those issues and you take corrective actions if necessary. So what we say is, you should be reading sub-meters that helps to identify unexpected consumption patterns in very specific area of the buildings, for example. Now, for very small hotels, it may be not worth installing sub-meters, but for medium, large size hotels, sub-metering is useful, at least in the following areas, being the kitchen, laundry, spa and pools, meeting rooms, and guest rooms. Yeah, the last one of the very basic one is goal setting. And once you have a clear picture of the consumption here that's been created, you put the goals for improvement can be made. Measurability is an important key to the success of an energy management program. It helps the establishment to identify the progress and the setbacks at this operational level. So in an individual hotel, target consumption figures are generally set with reference to historical consumption level. So if a hotel is part of a hotel chain, however, or a group, target may be set in reference to the best performer or the worst performer in that group. Sometimes where you have industry norms or averages that are available, so you can check your local or regional hotel association, that will be recommended. These may also be used as target values, but to keep in mind that the Global Hotel Decarbonization Report targets as a generic guidance moving forward 66% reduction by 2030, 90% by 2050. Okay, the next four are intermediate energy solutions. We'll start with our retrofits. There are many actions that one can do at the property that would provide a short-term ROI, such as the thermal installation of boilers, hot water tanks, the thermal installation of pipes, replacing lighting systems, occupancy sensors, but also some basic maintenance issues, such as removing obstructions that hinders the flow of cooling air through the condensers of air conditioning unit, or fitting aerators in the guest room tap flows restrictors on guest room showers, because this is all about water energy nexus and hot water production. Now, remember that a sustainable hotel building is at least 20% more resource efficient, with many upgrades having a typical payback of less than a year. Okay, building characteristic, it's going to get a little bit more complicated in a minute. Here too, some short and medium term return on investment, such as sealing the gaps and openings in the building envelope that increase that undesired ingress of hot, humid air into the air-conditioned place, or cold when heating the property. So understanding your current thermal performance is a key first step in assessing that potential benefits of improving any wall, window, roof, and floor. Of course, here, a centralized building management system would facilitate the task, but for many, this isn't an option. Yeah, on-site renewable is exciting. The use of renewable energy sources is expanding rapidly across the globe. The photovoltaic market, so photovoltaic solar panels, is a fast-growing with a compound annual growth rate here in Europe. We've seen 34% between 2010 and 2020. The price of PV rooftop system has dropped 89% over that 10 years, so from 2010 to 2020. And so I live in Germany, so if you look at a rooftop system, at the end of 2020, it was about 890 to perhaps 1,500 per kilowatt peak. And so the market is shifting from being subsidy driven via feed-in tariffs, so the energy produced by the PV sold back to the grid, to competitive pricing model, and such as power purchase agreement. In a power purchase agreement, you have a third-party company that builds, operates, maintains the renewable energy system, assuming all the risk. And that's really my next point. It's energy as a service. And so over the past year, the industry has made use of concepts such as software as a service, infrastructure as a service, or platform as a service. So the concept here is similar, and it's applicable to energy and buildings. Large capital expenditure may be a challenge for hotels these days. Energy service companies can offer an alternative financing model. The energy service company performs an analysis of the property. It proposes, designs these energy efficient solutions. And once the agreement has been reached, the energy company installs that equipment for energy efficiency measures or the production of renewable energy, and maintains also that system. The savings from that, the savings in energy costs, are then shared in parts or used to pay back the capital investment of the project over that period. And so this is quite interesting. This arrangement can be understood in a way as energy as a service, or a power as a service, a profit sharing model that offer interesting potential for both hotel companies that are facing decarbonization challenge. There are also, and it's worth checking, there are also variable financing models out there. Okay, then moving forward, 3 exciting things to look out. The Internet of Things that allows hoteliers to connect, monitor, review, or control almost, every energy using devices within the property, being able to wirelessly network and monitor entire hotel's worth of thermostats provides that hotelier with the ability to manage, monitor, track that effectiveness of their energy management system in real time. The most obvious here is using the occupancy of a space to control the heating, cooling, lighting within an environment, so that you never have a room that's empty and that keeps heating or cooling, for example. So allowing a property to decrease that energy consumption, leading to reduce, obviously, energy costs. There's been some research on IoT. So IoT connected lighting, for example, has shown that in one study to lead to a reduction of 28% in energy consumption for lighting. Yeah, the next one is offsets, or carbon offsets. I'm quite aware of a delicate situations in regards to offset, because many view that as an easy way out of energy waste culprit, while others see wasted resources. However, a well-planned investment in natural habitat restoration is critical to actually mitigate the worst impact of climate emergency. And for the time being, until complete decarbonization, carbon offset schemes are going to be around. So carbon offsets program basically allow your company to make up for the carbon dioxide created by your actions by investing in certain amount of money into carbon sequestration projects. And so we often think of planting trees, but you could be re-wetting wetland, for example, or you could be investing in renewable energy production projects. And so carbon offsetting organization make an estimation of the carbon dioxide created during the hotel stay. You attach a price to it. Carbon offset programs are obviously numerous, and they have different methodologies for measuring and verifying carbon emission. And so it's important to search for schemes that have the gold standard label. The gold standard sets requirements on climate development project to ensure a positive impact through transparent outcome and measurement and reporting. And that brings us to nature-based solutions. Now, this is an interesting part here. It's actually nature technology in many ways. And so nature and the ecosystem services are at the center of the hospitality business proposition, from food and beverage offers to guest enjoyment of natural landscape at the destinations. But one very important aspect to consider is that nature is not only a capital component that's available to us, but a source of solutions to mitigate, adapt to climate change, protect biodiversity, while also ensuring human well-being. And we often tend to revert back to man-made technologies to fix our climate problem. However, nature may actually be our best ally, and that's basically nature-based solutions in a nutshell. Activities or actions that are specifically designed to protect, restore the natural, modify habitat. And so, for example, cities around the globe have tackled urban heat island effect by actively supporting the so-called green cover replacement or green plot ratio for urban construction, and Singapore probably leading the way here. The basic idea for the land to be taken away through construction of building to be replaced with greenery within the construction via green rooftop, green intermediary spaces, green walls, etc. And so hotel buildings such as the Park Royal Collection Pickering that you see here on your right, or the Oasia Hotel downtown, both in Singapore, are examples of green cover replacement practice in urban centers. Another example would be the boutique hotel Stadthalle in Vienna on your left here. It's not only a carbon neutral property via passive housing construction, but offer guests a green paradise in front of their room in the middle of the city. And so we have the data, the scientific research to show that building with green spaces, such as living walls, rooftop, gardens, etc., are able to reduce the summer heat gain and cooling demands, and also reducing that urban heat island, which is actually a problem for many cities. It also helps to improve air quality, absorbs pollutant, it improves water management while rain in the cities, it reduces noise pollutions, it increases thermal comfort. Green walls and green roofing also conserve energy by obviously insulating that building envelope. Data shows that a green wall can reduce the temperature of the wall up to 20 degrees Celsius in the summer, thus reducing the need for cooling the building inside. And finally, there's research that showed that in urban areas, it's a significant source of floral diversity for insects, further supporting the importance of greening urban spaces. And the last part is the evidence of benefits outweighing the cost of implementation. Green spaces need to be placed at the heart of our planning. It's about restoration. It's about bending that carbon curve I was talking to earlier, and our proposition to move the hotel space to benefit guests and hosts equally. And although nature-based solutions have a clear environmental and financial benefit, they impact guest and employee alike as well. As communities where the hotel are located, research showed that mental energy restoration time is accelerated by having access to green spaces, compared to when you take a vacation where only built elements are visible. Integrating green spaces will result in healthier community inside and outside the building. Green facades are found to positively affect physiological but also psychological well-being. They provide comfort, relaxation, cheerfulness, vigor feelings compared to plain building walls. And now this is going to be the most interesting. For hotel operator, research has shown that the use of nature element minimizes employee burnout, increases work engagement satisfaction, and an increase in employee productivity and employee retention have also resulted for the increase of use of nature-based solution in building. So I know it's a lot of data, but what does this all mean? Well, it's no longer to craft just a beautiful building and space that people will enjoy. Today's hospitality concept should focus on people's reaction to the natural surrounding all the way, while keeping decarbonization as a core concept. And it's also really basically about merging biophilia and the hospitality experience, and the value of real estate. In fact, an increase of anywhere between 2 to 9.5% in real estate value was calculated when greenery is found in a surrounding space of urban buildings. And that's according to the Ignition project currently taking place in Manchester. So across all of this, it remains important to think about decarbonization when you are about to make decision on energy solution. And then ultimately, you would consider the following question: what is the most financially attractive way to cut the most carbon fast? And I don't have the time, but I'm just going to quickly present it to make decision on where, what, how much to invest to get the proper savings, ROI, or payback calculation. There's a tool out there. So in a time where we're chasing decarbonization on a large scale, including our industry, and where the price of carbons keeps increasing and eventually will be included in the building sector, it's worth to look into the marginal cost of abatement and the curve. So the original methodology that I'm showing here was developed over a decade ago by McKinsey to guide government investment decision. So with the MAC, you compute the cost of a climate intervention, including your upfront spending in terms of investment, and the saving. You discount those savings over the lifetime of the project, and then you compare this with the emission that the project is expected to abate or avoid. So it's a net present value of an investment via the internal rate of return. And you look at how much carbon you actually save. I don't have the time now to dwell onto the calculations, but simply take a look. You'll find the full calculations and further example in a white paper I authored with Berkeley Capital Group, which is available online for free, with plenty of calculation example for energy efficiency using the marginal abatement costs. I thank you so much for attending this very short masterclass. I wish you really the best way forward. Stay in touch via email or via LinkedIn. And I'm quickly checking. There's one question here: in our post-pandemic business model and operation structure appropriate for sustainability? Yeah, we have. So our current, just to answer this quickly, I have 1 minute. The current infrastructure we have in hotels was actually built for the Holocene period. We're actually not anymore in the Holocene, we're in the Anthropocene. And the Anthropocene is where our actions are having the greater impact on a geological component. So therefore, we need to actually transfer our entire hotel infrastructure into an Anthropocene. And that means we need to have a full decarbonization across the board. And there's much work ahead to be able to do this, but it's not impossible because we already have best practices. There are already many carbon neutral hotels out there. All right, so I think I've reached my half an hour. It's been really a pleasure. I apologize for giving you so much material, but I hope this was nevertheless of interest. Do reach out on LinkedIn or via email should you have any more questions. And I wish you a fantastic rest of the day at the InnoFact Show, Asia Pacific. Thank you so much.